Welcome to Outlook. This is number 2 with Pastor Paul Donaldson of Downpour Church, and we're excited to share with you today some of the things that are current not only in our society, but also in our world. And we should know the heart of the Lord, the heart of Jesus, as we meet different tight places or different opinions, different life persuasions. And so Pastor Paul and I are going to share together about however it comes about.
However it comes out.
Yes.
Yes.
But recently we were reading, for instance, there are so many different persuasions.
Mm-hmm.
There are racial issues. There are same-sex issues.
Mm-hmm.
There are religious issues. There's such a variancy in our culture today. It's just like everything's been thrown out in the street.
Right.
And people are trying to sort through.
Right.
But we know that God's Word gives life, and His heart gives life.
That's it.
And He wants everything to be transformed for our blessing.
Right.
And He wants every person out there, He's got a destiny for them.
That's right.
Isn't that exciting?
When you look at people, you have to realize that Jesus died for them, every person upon the earth, and that His blood is sufficient, is able to cleanse the sin of every person.
Yes.
In other words, like we said before, they are pre-qualified because Jesus doesn't have to die again. He already died once and for all to qualify everyone for a relationship with Him. And so all it takes is, it's like when you get that paper in the mail, you are pre-qualified for this Visa card. All you have to do is sign on here or send the number in, and you've already got it. Well, Jesus said, I have pre-qualified you for eternal life.
That's true. And
you turn to me, and it becomes a joining with Him, and what He paid for, we get.
The greatest thing we were ever given is our own free will, isn't it?
Yes.
And we can choose Him, or we cannot choose Him.
Right.
And one day I saw, if I make a good choice, I say no to all this other that would damage.
Mm-hmm.
And if I say no to the good choice, I invite in everything that can damage.
Right.
And people, if they realize that about salvation, how if we say yes to Him, goodness, we get life, and we get love, and we get security, and we get eternity, and
right.
we get health, and we get
so many benefits.
Yeah.
It's like they're already paid for.
Yes.
And it would be like my father saying to me, Paul, I have already purchased everything in this Walmart store for you. Now just go pick it up. Whatever it is, it's all yours. I mean, that would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'd be there 3 days.
Pre-qualified. Well, everything, the Bible says, everything that is pertaining to life, you have all things. And so, but we have a problem with that. That's good for you and me because we agree. But what about someone else that doesn't agree with how we think? Do we want them coming in and being a part of that? Has He pre-qualified the Muslims?
Yes, He has.
What about the gay community?
Yes, He has.
He loves them just as much as He loves you and I. And what we need to do is get His mindset, not our mindset. Jesus said, do you remember Jesus said, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees?
That is so good. I remember that verse.
He said that the leaven of the Pharisees is a religious mindset that basically says this is the law. You have to obtain anything from God. You have to obey these laws and abide by that. Come under that. Then he said also, beware of the leaven of Herod. And that was the political mindset. The political mindset of Herod was that that you do things for political reasons and you shun people for political reasons.
And you know what? If you do it for political reasons, it's to get you under the power of the person at the top that's driving that.
He becomes your God.
Yeah.
And so if we're to take the words of Jesus, Jesus treated everyone alike. In fact, he sheltered the one that they were trying to stone because of her adultery. He sheltered her from the sin, from the religious mindset that says she is not worthy. She needs to be cast out or cast aside, or in their situation, stoned to death. And so what do we do with people that don't believe the way we believe? So many times in the church, we think that if we associate with them, someone else is going to see us and think that we think that way. Or if I invite that person over my house, that if I invite a gay person over, everybody's going to think I'm gay. So what we have to do is we got to hate on those people. And basically, so then when we do that, we're going over to the other side. We're doing the works of darkness instead of light. Jesus said that the way that we reach people is through love. Mm-hmm. The greatest power is love.
It's always relational, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So build relationships with people and show them what Jesus is like. Because when we do that, we show them the heart of the Father. And so many people they have an orphan mentality that God doesn't like me, that I don't belong, I don't measure up.
Or I've sinned so much.
So much.
Yeah, that he can't forgive me.
And part of the fight between these mindsets is that very thing. It's we try to get away from people that make us feel guilty or make us feel bad, and so we want to slam or slander them. We've got to stop it. We've got to stop it.
It's really living for ourselves, isn't it? Or trying to protect ourselves.
I believe you're right. Protect ourselves.
Because we're fear-based. Mm-hmm. Do you think? Yes. And how in the world? All right. Now we established that those mindsets that are different than us, they're already pre-qualified for salvation. They Much
need,
bigger
they need
and better.
To be saved, and that's the solution. Mm-hmm. But we actually keep people from the solution by our attitude toward them. Sometimes our attitude toward those different lifestyles are even worse than that lifestyle in itself.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Our bitter reaction,
yes,
our hatred of those people, that lifestyle is actually worse.
And you know
than that
what?
lifestyle.
Instead of looking at people individually, we often look at them as a group. And we say all of those. Yeah. Like all who aren't Christian or, Mm-hmm. And we generalize and put them all in the same pocket.
Yeah.
And God loves us one by one, by one, by one, by one, because he counts the hairs on our head. Mm-hmm. He's written our names in the palms of his hand, he says. Now, I think that's Isaiah 49.
We're special to him, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's who we are.
Yeah. And I personally believe that we have come to see, or I believe that God has, well, I'm sure of it. I shouldn't say it that way. In Psalm 139, it says, I have written down every day of your life in my book.
Wow.
If you read it in the New Living. Mm-hmm. But I can write differently with my own will against what God's written for my good.
But that just goes to the thoughts he has for us.
Yeah.
If he's written down, he's obsessed with us. He loves us that much.
We're part of him, aren't we?
Yeah.
Because we were created by him.
Yeah. And I just want people to know that he's not mad at them. And then when they realize that God is not mad at them, that he loves them.
And never will be, really.
That's right. Then that opens the door. But if we say, you scum, God's mad at you. Well, Jesus didn't do that. He went and ate with the sinners, the winos, they called them wine bibbers, and he loved them, and they loved him. He was evidently the kind of person that you like to be around.
I bet he had a magnetic personality.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Or an aura about him that made people feel so comfortable.
Made him feel loved, too. Yeah.
I have a daughter-in-law. No matter where we go, people start opening up to her.
Uh-huh.
Because she's so available. And I think, I don't know, there's just something about her. And I think Jesus was that way. Mm-hmm. No matter what our problem is, whether, many people are having addiction problems in one way or another. Or, as we said earlier, maybe they're a gay community member. Or maybe a different religion.
Yeah.
He's just out there waiting for that to be softened so he can give them a glimmer of light for more.
He loves them
more.
So much.
Yeah.
And if we could just see people through the eyes of heaven, through the eyes of God. Like, who is this person in the eyes of my Father?
If you're in business today, what would you do if you're approached to sell or do business with someone that doesn't believe like you do?
Well, the political spirit says that I wouldn't sell them something because it might reflect on me. But the example of Jesus, who is our perfect example, is that regardless of their belief, I would serve them. I would provide them that service. Because I figure it this way: if I rub shoulders with them, I have an influence. I have an atmosphere. And the atmosphere that I have of the presence of the Lord is going to encounter that, whether it's a gay lifestyle or a different religion. And so we have opportunity to show them how Jesus really feels toward them. I would say that, if you want to be political, if you want to be religious, you might cut them off. But if you want to follow the example of Jesus, then you begin to serve that person or that group and not worrying about the reflection upon you, because who you are in God says, I love them. You walk into a place and you just begin to love them. And so they need to see that. How are we going to reach people if light doesn't come into dark places? How do they know that they're in darkness if light doesn't enter? How do they know that they're missing out on love if the atmosphere of love doesn't enter? Because you carry that atmosphere, that peace that's on you, Rachel. And when you walk into a place, it changes the atmosphere in that place. And we can either be thermometers, or we can be thermostats. We can change the environment that we're in, and that's what we're called to do as Christians.
As you've been talking, I was thinking about Smith Wigglesworth, that lived back in the 19th century, from England, and he couldn't even read or write, and he was a plumber. Mm-hmm. And do you remember reading his biography about how his wife was a thermostat? If I recall correctly, he was a hard drinker, and he could be abusive. And she went to church, and he didn't want anything to do with church.
Wow, that's hard to believe.
No, he didn't. And then he got converted later on. But what brought him to conversion? I just love it. His wife wanted to go to church, and he didn't like it. So when she got home, and came in the house, he kind of beat her up and threw her out the door, and it was wintertime. And he locked the door, and she couldn't come in. And they had a porch swing in England. And she sat on the porch swing all night and tried to bundle up and stay warm. And the next morning, when it was time for breakfast, she knocked on the door and he opened it, and she said, "Smith, if you'll let me in, I'll fix your breakfast." Just as happy as she could be.
Wow.
And she did. And it melted him.
Mm-hmm.
He saw the thermostat love that melted him down. And he saw, after I've treated her so horribly, and here she's giving me preference and love and serving me.
Right.
And when Smith Wigglesworth died, it's documented he'd raised 16 people from the dead and traveled the world to communicate the love of Jesus.
On both sides, like what we're talking about of social issues, there's hate coming from both sides.
Mm-hmm. You're right. It is both sides.
And love is definitely the answer. Mm-hmm. So we can be either agents of change by bringing love and light through that, loving someone. It may get us a bad reputation, but it will actually change our culture. We need change. We don't need people that are just going along. We need to stand up for what you believe.
We need to be honest with ourselves.
To stand up for what we believe is not criticizing another person, not putting them down. That's not standing up for what we believe. That's standing up for what the enemy wants to perpetrate, and that's hatred. To stand up for what we believe is to stand in love.
That's good. That's good. Say that again.
To stand up for what we believe is not coming against that person and raising a sign against them and protesting them. To stand up for what we believe is to stand in love for that person.
Mm-hmm. It's not whether they are right or wrong.
Regardless.
Or whether I'm right or wrong.
Regardless.
It's the Lord's love in us.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what Jesus did when he was on the cross. Those people that were crucifying him, he said, "Father, forgive them. They just don't know what they're doing." And so what was the answer? The answer was bringing them to Jesus. The answer was the thief on the cross that says, "I don't understand you, Jesus, but I want what you have."
And isn't it interesting that one really saw Jesus and the love in him that received him, and then the other one's free will didn't come toward that at all.
Right, yeah. And one received him.
One was teachable, and one was open enough to be honest and choose life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like our world today, isn't it?
That people will do the same today. I really believe if we will be like Jesus, and if we're strong to our convictions, which is he loves every one of them, and then that will bring people to Christ and make the difference, whether we're in church or out of church or at a job. So our job is to be representatives and to partner with God, and not against him, but partner with him through showing love.
In my ladies group, we have a ladies group of East Texas, all this area that meets once a month. And several months back, we had a former Muslim girl who had moved here from, I think it was Iran. And with her family, they had come to New York and then later moved to Richardson, Texas. And she had a coworker with her that kept loving her, eating lunch with her, who went to a church that was right across the street from the mosque that this girl attended. And she said that when they would come out of the mosque, they'd see all these people from the church happy and talking and chatting and visiting after church. And since it was on Sunday, they or other days of the week, they would go eat together later. Well, the co-workers started sharing a little bit and then invited her to go. And she wanted to go to church with her because of all the joy she saw.
Right. Yeah.
It was the joy and the fellowship and the acceptance that her heart was hungry for.
We've had that here in Longview. So what do you do when they build a mosque across the street from where you live? There's a choice there.
Okay.
You see? And if we bake them cookies, we go to them and we love them. You know, what would the love of God do? If they walk out from their mosque and people are throwing eggs, say, get out of our neighborhood, get out of our neighborhood, then that is not helping at all. But what, you bake them cookies. My wife says, bake them cookies if they're your enemy. You know? And they're not our enemy. But through love, then we show them what Jesus is like, and that Jesus is real. And it's just a twist of a mindset. You do the opposite of what your flesh calls for. Your flesh says, get out of here. The Spirit says, you better love them because I want them to see God in you. That's where the rubber meets the road, when it's right here.
And that's still getting down to our free will. We can either stifle that which God would bless us with, or we can let it flow. Let it flow.
Yeah.
So
I'd rather let it flow.
When I've had the privilege, Paul, of getting to go to Israel, and our tour guide.
I want to go.
Oh, I do. I want to go back with you. Okay. Our tour guide had real good friends that were Arabs, and a lot of times we don't hear this on the news. But he had special places to go, and they were like brothers. A Jewish person and an Arab person.
There you go.
And they worked together to elevate each other. And they knew that if something happened, the other would protect them.
That's good.
It is good, and it's how it should be.
Yeah.
And we need to look around our own neighborhoods, don't we?
And one more thing, pastors need to elevate one another.
Okay, tell us about
instead
pastor
of
prayer.
Criticizing, we need to elevate one another. And I want to do that. And pastors are meeting together here in Longview on Wednesdays. We've started that because I believe revival and an awakening is coming to Longview. I believe that.
I agree.
And I'm a part of that. But I want to be a part of a group that we brag on the other pastors. When someone has a blessing, they can call us up and say, hey, guess what happened at church today? And then this other congregation rejoices. Because we're all the body.
Yes.
It's time for the church, it's time for God's people to love people that think different than them. Even denominations.
You're right.
And when we begin to do that, then we're going to see a revival. We're going to see the move of God that we're longing for.
And that's where that unity comes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is to drop our rocks.
Yeah. That's right.
No more rocking.
And so, if you're a business owner and you there's a group of people that don't agree with your lifestyle, or that you're straight and they're not, because you serve them in your business, allow them in your store, does that mean you're condoning their lifestyle? No, that just means you're showing the love of Jesus, right? And that just means you're loving those people, and actually you're standing up for what you believe. You believe in love first, and that love conquers all. The greatest thing, the greatest force is the love of God, not the condemnation of the law. See, that's what we've been talking about. So there are wrong lifestyles. There are people that need Jesus desperately. They're in false religions. But because I talk to them because I talk to them, love them, even invite them over my house, doesn't mean I'm in that religion. I had an ex-Satanist over my house the other day.
Did you really?
Ex-Satanist. But what if he was still in it and I invited him over? I'm not afraid of the devil. I'll bring him in because he needs to feel something else besides darkness. If all they know is darkness and they've never felt the presence of the Lord, which is real and which is tangible, then how are they going to know they're in darkness? And so instead of cutting people off, we need to go to them and love them.
I really see in today's world that many times we're back in the Garden of Eden. Mm-hmm. And instead of going to the tree of life, which is the love, the joy, the peace, the acceptance of the life of Christ in us for others, mm-hmm. and for ourselves, actually, mm-hmm. many people don't like themselves because their past is too big. We instead eat off the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And we divide life by this is good and that is evil. Mm-hmm. When we see it in a person. I years ago heard a pastor get angry with another pastor because he sent bulletins or brochures about meeting that was to be at his church. And he said, I don't like it, they're trying to steal my sheep. And when I heard that, immediately I thought, they're not his sheep.
Right.
They're God's sheep. Mm-hmm. And sheep don't always graze in the same place all the time. Yeah. They need to be free to find where their heart leads them. Yeah. And so we need to again come back to Jesus. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
it's instead of my church mentality, it's a kingdom mentality.
Yes.
That was the message of Jesus. And when you're in kingdom mentality, then you know that even if you sow into another church or another pastor, or if someone comes to your church for a while and then goes somewhere else to be, because you equip them or whatever, it's a part of the kingdom. It's bigger. And so it's the kingdom, the church mentality. Jesus said, I'll build my church, and so the church is important. But it's bigger than just the local. We are one body, and it's a kingdom mentality.
And so, He's the head.
He's the head, and so why not rejoice when something great happens across the street? Why not have a church on every corner? I mean, the Satanists, they want to take over their neighborhoods. They pray against their neighborhoods. Why not have Jesus? Why not have Christians on every neighborhood praying for that neighborhood? Having churches all over the place. That doesn't hurt, because I think God's preparing us for a good revival. We need churches. We need people who love Jesus, not of the religious spirit or not of the critical spirit, not of a political spirit, but of the kingdom of God and of love. I mean, that's what is happening.
We need to bind together.
It's going to happen. It's happening in cities all across our nation.
Do you remember that old song, Blessed Be the Tie That Binds?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Our hearts.
Yeah.
In Christian love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I guess we've been talking about a lot of different things. But you need to know that the love in you can reach out to anybody. Not their behavior.
Right.
But to the person they are, and to the destiny that God has for them, to help them along the way. After all, they may turn around and help you when you need it. And I've seen it time and time again. Haven't you enjoyed today and visiting with Pastor Paul? And I'm so glad you've tuned us in. And for this, we say we'll see you again next time on Outlook. And in the meantime, go pray for our world and go love one another.
Yes.
As He has loved us.